so that we can now start the presentation. Please, Prof.
Thank you very much, our Chair Council and the conference participants. This conference, being the first one, has not been easy to organize, and even raising resources so that we can run it has not been very easy. We are very happy that we partnered with about 4 people, and they agreed to be involved at the beginning. Yesterday, those of you who are here in the pre-conference, we had a big team from Netherlands sponsored by NAFIC. So you remember yesterday, one of the sponsors this side was NAFIC for the pre-conference days. And from today up to tomorrow, we have 3 very important sponsors. The NRF Kenya, which the CEO was here, they sponsored us and we are very happy with them. Kindly clap for them in absentia. Then the ICT authority also has been with us and they have given us good money. We can also clap for them in absentia. I don't know whether we have anybody from ICT, but they gave us money and we are very happy and many other things. And then, of course, Meru University of Science and Technology Council, because all resources we use actually the resources of the government led by the council. We can applaud the council for really allowing us to use the resources to do this. Very importantly also today, from yesterday, I saw Kenyan has been here physically and they really sponsored us. You can clap for Kenyan. But because Kenyan is represented here physically, I would like to ask the representative to come and greet us, say 1 or 2 things before we go to the next agenda. Please, Madam, where are you? Oh, it's not still out. They're coming. I said yesterday and this morning that we'll be having this annual conference every year. And we want to create a team of people, team of entities that we can use, we can put up our resources together so that we make this a really, really impactful conference every year. And for our staff who are here, led by our only full professor who has been here a very long time. But sometimes when I see you, you got a PhD 74 when? Professor Mutema, was he 74? You make us very small. And you can still come and sit with us. And some of us who just got PhD the other day and professor the other day, we can't even show up. So you guys learn from these people. I know I'm hard on you, but learn. Mutema can still come, sit, can still go to class, teach, can still supervise students. And it's like it's confirming that learning is a change in behavior that results from, it doesn't end, from womb to tomb. So let's be serious, even as we do our conference, as we do our conference, one of the things is really, as academicians, especially my staff, I'm talking with you, think. Even as a VC, I still supervise students. I still do my things. Very busy. And if you really want to live a very exciting academic and research life, please take your academic work seriously. And that's why we have this conference. So the representative from Engen, are you there? Yes. James, please, you can come. We are very grateful that Kenyan accepted to be part and parcel of the sponsorship. So please come and greet us and tell us 1 or 2 things. Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is James Kahutu. I'm the Chief Engineer in charge of innovation at Kengen. We are delighted this morning to be part of this wonderful delegation. And I would like to just give a few words, a small talk, that for those who are not aware, maybe for the benefit of some of us who do not know what Kengen does, we are the leading electricity generator in the country. 70% owned by government, then 30% is private. And we are focusing on sustainability issues. Right now we are leading a geothermal-led strategy. For those who have been able to visit our on-carrier field, know that we are very much into geothermal. And the reason why we are doing this is we want to make sure that we supply reliable electricity to all Kenyans, because without affordable and reliable power, then we cannot make it as a nation. The next thing, the reason why we are here is that we are very passionate about collaboration. We believe that it's through collaboration with the institution of higher learning like MUST that we can be able to solve the challenges that are facing our country today. So I want to encourage the academia, especially I've looked at the program, they are very good, interesting papers. We would like this delegation to be part of the solutions of the challenges we are facing, especially in the energy sector. More often than not, people are complaining that the electricity is going higher and higher, the bills. But for us to be able to generate cheaply, then these solutions must come from this team. So we also want to say that as an organization, we are also very, very particular on innovation. As you've heard, I'm in charge of innovation. In Kengen, we have been having this journey for the last 10 years. The reason why, for some of those people who follow international news, right now we are in Ethiopia, we are drilling for them geothermal wells. And that idea was presented by one of our staff in 2012. So right now we have already actualized it. Then sometimes in 2018, we started what we call open innovation, where we encourage the public, students from universities, to share ideas that can help us to drive the innovation and energy agenda in the country. And we want to say that, especially this morning, I want to say that we want to launch something we are calling Innovation Challenge, where we shall be calling participants, especially university students and members of the public. We shall be giving them a small challenge, and by the end of the day, there will be a very good reward and recognition system to ensure that the innovator who come up with the winning idea is appreciated. So without saying so much, I look forward to listening to the wonderful papers I've seen in the program, and I want to reassure this organization our support as an institution. We are ready to work with universities to make sure that they also realize the agenda. So thank you very much.
So thank you very much our sponsors, thank you very much our VC, the chair, and members. And now I want to hand over this to the chair of this session, Professor Eric Mushiri, to take us to the presentation of the day. You can use this one.
The chair of council was here yesterday. I made a very extensive speech, but before he leaves, he will still want to say something for 5 minutes before he leaves. And I think that is okay, Chair Professor Bosire. So kindly come and then you can address us, then after that we go to the next presentation. Thank you.
the Vice Chancellor, the Management Board, my council member who is here, the representatives from the sponsors, distinguished scholars, Professor Gerono and Beatrice Maisori, faculty members, students, good morning. I know yesterday was my day for sure. We had a good conversation, so I'm not going to speak much, but because I was supposed to speak in the morning, and since the peers had a tight schedule, I just wanted to echo some of the comments that I was to make. One is that Meru University is creating a sustainable, equitable, and inclusive system of academic and research training, and laying emphasis on incubating ideas and technologies within our innovation, which we thank our Chancellor, Dr. James Mwangi, for establishing through his family contribution. And I really echo the Kenyan. I think not only are you sponsoring, but I think your approach to seek innovative ideas and research to support the energy sector, to bring down. I think that's the role of our university. Where was our university established? The university was established to solve society problems. And I'm urging all the scholars, and I think that's the pathway we are pursuing, that all faculty, you start at research from the one you join the university. That is number one. And I think that's our motto now, this is our university. It has been there, and I think we are emphasizing as a council that research, when you research, again, you bring your paper, your findings to this audience in the form of presentation, and then you want to make it better, improve it, submit it to peer-reviewed valid journal. If there is an innovation accompanying that, there is an incubation center, and we want to see more incubated innovations from, and because we have the IP policy that will support that. So I think, engineer, I would like, you see, once you say something good, it sticks in my head, so it doesn't come out. I'll be asking the teams how far we are with the I think, Vice Chancellor academic, the DVC academic. I think we need to help Kenyan. Why can't we be the ones really who sit at that table and tell them you can solve your problems? So I think that's a challenge you have given us. And my chair here of academic is now also in the picture. Because if we can make that difference in this country, we can go from country to country, support them. Recently, again, I think I mentioned this yesterday, with the Vice Chancellor, we signed MOUs and articulations with 7 institutions in Canada to allow undergraduate and graduate student mobility, academic partnerships, joint research innovation projects, capacity building for instructors in competence-based training, faculty and student reciprocal exchange, and developing different articulation 3+1, 2+2, And I think that's also aimed at improving the quality of our research, our programs, and I'm swearing the public to send their students here because our programs are internationalized. We are pushing towards that direction. And I think the other thing I was trying to put together some thoughts. I had a friend at the University of British Columbia when we used to meet at annual conferences. In Canada, we have social science and humanities conferences. Every year, we used to move from city to city. So, and there's a pattern I saw which is really important, that each supervisor comes with students who present their papers. So in 2023, requesting those supervisors, we would like to see more. We would like really to see such a strategy. Bring your students, their research, let them present, them get feedback. I think I really used to see this fellow, and I was really like, and they were in science, sharing their experiments and what they have done. And I think that is really something that you could think about, because it's not only faculty we want to listen to, we want to listen to your product. You are mentored, and now they can stand on this stage. The other one is we are shifting, of course, the globally 21st century, we are shifting from, especially in classroom teaching, from teacher lecture-centered to student-centered strategies. So it means that it is high time now, lecturers, you relinquish your authority from being the center of to student. Again, that one is also goes together with the assessment. We are recommending strongly, and I think this is now the practice, and CBC is the practice now in the lower primary, to university. Because competency-based require that it's not only knowledge, learning about content, is about application. And that's why it's learner-centered. You need to develop activities, design your course outlines to provide activities for student engagement. And your role becomes that of a facilitator. The other one is that we are recommending strongly, and I think this is the practice in many contexts, from summative assessment, some to formative assessment, or what we call assessment for learning, or assessment as learning, when individual students are involved in self-assessment. We would like faculty to provide more feedback. And again, feedback that enables the learner or the student to move forward, but not an assessment which makes the learner emotional. Those two, emotional, it's really not helping. That's what summative does. And especially when you don't really give feedback, there's nowhere you can teach. I used to challenge my colleagues that you teach at the end of it, you are giving somebody 0. Whose 0 is that one? Ask yourself. You have sat with this fellow for one term, one semester, and so again, feedback that moves learning forward is important. using rubrics. These are scoring tools which as the vertical, you have the criteria, what you are assessing of the task, and the performance levels from 1 to 4. It can be 1 to 4 to 5. That performance levels has descriptors in form of quality work. So as you move up from 1 to 5, it shows that the student, the quality is improving. The descriptors of level 1 and level 5 should be distinguished, even level 1 and 2. Again, as the other thing that comes with that is flexible learning environment and the flexible learning approach, use of technology, synchronized real-time, and synchronized real-time. Of course, we have, thanks to eByford, I think that's the where is the platform we use here, and I think some use Collaborate Learn, some use Zoom, or asynchronized platforms like Moodle. Faculty need to be friends on that, because with that now, we can teach our students, enroll them and be seated somewhere in New York or in Osaka in Japan. I remember I used to teach students from here in Canada, in South Korea. They are enrolled. And I just set up it's only the problem has been the challenge of the timelines, the time zones. So flipped classrooms, that's a concept. Personally, I've used it. If you are not familiar with it, I think this is one of the best in terms of giving students assignments, let them do on their own, come to class to share. Flipped classrooms. Half classroom, half on their own. And again, that is the strategy that allows. Then the other one now, last three, is that using your intellectual capital. Intellectual capital. Universities now, in many contexts now, are leveraging the strength of their lecturers to develop, to solve problems in the society, especially in government, in private, developing short corporate courses, supporting specific areas of challenge to corporates, to governments. Recently, when I was with the VC in Canada, they call it micro-credentialing. Micro-credentialing. And that micro-credentialing, it can be 3 days, but what that person pays is what we get from one student in a year. The year's fees is paid in 3 days. So again, that's one way of generating revenue to the university. That's the future and that is what we need to engage strongly. And I think, like Kenjan, we are going to send our business development team to come and find out your challenges, and we are going to customize those challenges to have a customized training. Is that a possibility? Okay, now we'll start with Kenjan. And I think with those few remarks, I wish you all the best in your conversations, and God bless you. Thank you.
Chair, just before you sit, we have a gift for Kenjan. we would like you to come so that you can pass the gift to him. Thank you.
So, as you receive your gift, sir,
The academic. Yeah, please.
Colleagues from Kenya.
Engineer. Kabuto. Your name is? Okay.
so this is a plaque. It's in the shape of a flame, fire. This is our request to you that you keep igniting the fire in support of research and innovation and development. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think for us, now that we have started this partnership, I'm not influencing you, but I think if there is an institution in this country to start with, it's Kenya. Thank you. Thank you. Excuse me, let me give you my card. Yeah, this one. Yeah, and your colleague. Excuse me.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman of the Meru University Council, Professor Bosire, Council members who are with us today, the Vice Chancellor, the Deputy Chancellor, all protocols observed. My name is Professor Moshiri, and I will be chairing the next session. And in this session, we have 5 papers that are going to be presented to us. And each of the presenters will have 15 minutes to make his presentation. And then at the end of the 5 presentations, we're going to have a discussion session. So in view of the time that we've got, and in order for us to fit within the timetable, allow me to call the first presenter, Professor Aremi, to come forward so that he can make his presentation. Thank you very much, sir. The next presenter should be preparing himself or herself, because I realize time is not on our side. Please. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. This morning I will be making a presentation, and in the view that the audience is composed of different professions, it will not be really focused to more science, but more understanding of the concept. So the work in terms of the book of abstract, perhaps what you have is supplementation of camels for feeding during drought season. I've given it a different title here. We have climate smart camel feeds, basically for peace, wealth, and education. My name is Professor Joshua Aremi. This work is done with collaboration with Professor Levi Musalia from Tharaka University, Dr. David Changwan from Kar Marsabit, and Dr. Guyo Huka from Meru University, and Dr. Florence Diakunu. To start with, the photo there is what we are calling triumph entry. On 10th June, exactly at 1643, we were able to welcome the first 2 camels to Meru University of Science and Technology. In terms of camel distribution in this country or in the world, what I have there is the distribution. In the world, we have approximately that 7 million camels. And Africa takes the biggest chunk, over 80 or 85%, around that 2 million camels. And the biggest proportion of that is concentrated in the East African countries, Kenya, Southern Sudan, Somalia, and Ethiopia. Kenya ranks third among the countries, with Somalia leading in terms of camels, and Kenya contributes around 12% of the camels in the world. Other countries that have highest number of camels is Somalia and Sudan. In terms of counties, Mandela in Kenya leads in the highest number of camels, around 1.8 million. And what we are seeing a trend that is changing. Previously, camels were only in northeastern regions. Now we are seeing them in other regions. We are seeing them in Meru. You can see Meru number 12. We are seeing them in Kitui. We are seeing them in Laikipia, Baringo, and the other counties in Kenya. Then the question is, why camels? One key thing is we are experiencing climate change throughout the world. Camels are very resilient. They can go up to 14 days without water. That makes them one of the most resilient animals for climate change. Kenya, as we speak currently, is the leading camel milk producer in the world, with around 1.12 million tons. Camel milk is also very nutritious and also medicinal properties. And why camels? We don't have any feed for camels in the market. And camel rearing is increasing. We take just one county, like in Isiolo. In the last 10 years, the camels have increased from 50,000 to 150,000, which is a very big increase. And we are seeing that trend all over. Camels are even moving to temperate countries. Then why develop fields? It's a developmental question. For us, as human beings, we used to eat fruits and berries from the forest. But now we formulate our fields so that our food, basically, so that we can have sufficient nutrients. We can supplement where there are no nutrients. There we have, I've taken just two examples. Our pets, like dogs, previously we only used to feed them the waste. But the trend has totally changed. Now you can go to a supermarket and go home with the top dog or any other feed. And if it's missing a certain nutrients, you can supplement as well. Here we have, on the left, I think, is the case of prodigal son, who we were given an example in the Bible, how he fed with the camels, and he didn't like it. But nowadays, you can see the kind of where we are keeping camels. It's very clean. They get very decent food, feed, and it's very clean. So the trend is changing, basically. There are a lot of conflicts which are coming about because of camel rearing or pastoralism. I think the first photo on top there is in 2016. Around 15 camels were killed in Meru. They crossed from Isiolo. Down there we can see our CS, Matiang, the other day, Meru County, and passed a law that no camels should cross to Meru from Isiolo, and he was faulting them. So we are seeing conflicts because of these animals. In March 2022, just the other day, tensions rose between Isiolo and Meru border after killing of 9 camels. And it's very unfortunate. I think we are losing lives every year. Not only of animals, we are losing at least 1,000 people due to conflicts, particularly between the camel herders and the agrarian farmers. Even this time, it's unfortunate. They lost a few people in this conflict. That conflict, in my title, it was about wealth and education and about peace. Wealth destroyed. Basically, once the camels started dying because of drought, these people are losing their wealth because that's their main investment. Also, learning is being affected if it's pastoralism way of keeping camels. It's not only the boy child, even the girl child is being affected because they have to take camels for search of pastures and water. So basically, learning is being affected. So in terms of methodology, what did we do? We formulated camel fins using local materials, particularly that are found in arid and semi-arid areas, acacia ponds and the other materials. We have exhibition outside there. Camels are not used to feeding from troughs. So we had to train them first to make sure they feed. So it took at least 2 weeks. And some completely refused to feed from the troughs because they are used to, they call it top layer. They used to eat the shrubs on top. So it took us time to train them. On the right there is Dr. Florence Diacono with some of the fins that we have formulated for camels. In Garamara, we have what we are calling camel feedlot system, where we are put up in the Ewasonyiro North Development Authority Camel Center. It can hold around 15 camels, but we are doing research on 10 camels. 5 are being fed supplemented fins, 5 are not supplemented. So this is the kind of feeding we are doing there. The feed consists of approximately 17% crude protein, and we supplement camels at around 1.5% of their body weight. And then we monitor weight after every 2 weeks. What we have seen is the camels that we are supplemented. What I want the audience to be aware, we are not trying to fatten the camels. We are trying to sustain them during drought so that the hunters don't cross borders looking for fins for camels, so that they are able to sustain them and until the drought is over, so that once the rains come, they can have fins. We realized the ones supplemented, for the 2 months we had taken the weights, the weight increase was around 15% compared to the non-supplemented, which is 10%. But the percentage to us is not very important. What is very important is the ability to sustain the camels during drought. What is the way forward?
You have 5 minutes, boss.
Thank you. What's the way forward? I think the image is not very clear. We can see where Meru University is on that map on the right is the center of Kenya. And most of the camels are around in the north. So we are the most northernmost university to support camel research in Kenya. So what is the way forward? We are thinking of our dream is to end up with a camel research, what we call living lab here at Meru University. And towards that, we have been able, by support from the university, to launch what we are calling Camera Research Center of Excellence here. And we keep on growing it so that we can support the hunters and the pastoralists in northern Kenya. I wish to acknowledge various organizations which have made this possible. Meru University Management, Directorate of Research, National Research Fund for funding, and KSAP for funding, and also our collaborators, the Raka University College, Ewasonyiro Northern Development Authority. We have various undergraduate students who are doing lab work on some of our fields and other experiments, and also postgraduate students. And also we thank Isiolo and County Marsabit, counties of Isiolo and Marsabit. They are the main sites where we are carrying this research. And also we have farmers in Isiolo and Marsabit. So thank you very much.
Again, let's appreciate the presentation by Professor Aribi. Thank you very much, Prof, for the good presentation. We will hold on to our questions until we get to our discussion session. Our next presenter is George Mutwiri. Mutwiri, you can share with us the research that you've done and your results. Thank you. Welcome. So as we wait for Mutwiri to be ready, our next presenter is going to be Dorothy Kagendo, Dr. Dorothy Kagendo. So Kagendo, be prepared so that you can take us with your presentation. Yes. Okay, and being told, yes, there are people who have seated on the far end of the theater. Please come forward. Those who are in the last 3 rows, come and fill the first or the up to closer to me. Yes, I can see some other colleagues who are standing. Please move forward. Thank you. Thank you. I believe we are almost ready now.
Okay, good morning.
Morning to you.
Today I'll be presenting a review of techniques for morphological analysis in natural language processing. This is a bit technical, mostly in computer science. It's been a pivotal research in assisting me with my other research in Swahili. So I'm George Mutwiri, and I've been under the supervision of Dr. Makau Mutwa and Dr. Amos Omama. So we'll be looking at morphological segmentation. We'll be reviewing the techniques that are in morphological segmentation, lemmatization, POS tagging, and stemming. So what are these that we are calling morphological segmentation all the way to stemming? They fall under a group of techniques in natural language processing we call morphological analysis, which is the study of how words in a language are formed by combining morphemes. Basically, when we talk of natural language processing, the one we have all interacted with is maps. You've heard that voice that directs you to a location, turn to left 200 meters away. That voice is part of natural language processing, but our research now focuses more of text, which is now in morphological analysis. So it's a subfield of semantic analysis that contains the following subfields: morphological segmentation, lemmatization, POS tagging or part of speech tagging, and stemming. So what are these tasks in morphological analysis? We'll start with morphological segmentation. In NLP, it involves dissecting words into their constituent morphemes. A morpheme is basically the least meaning or the unit that contains the least meaning in text. We can look at it as how you break a word into the constituent letters that have formed that word. Lemmatization is another subtask which looks at the conversion of an inflected word, like talked, into its citation form, which is talk. Now, if you look at the citation form of a word, basically this is the form in which this word appears in the dictionary. That is what we are calling the citation form. So when you're looking up a word like talking, most probably when you look it up in the dictionary, you'll be looking for the word talk, which is its citation form. And any tool that is used to perform lemmatization is called a lemmatizer. POS tagging, or part of speech tagging, aims at assigning a unique tag label that indicates a syntactic role of a word in a sentence. So what is this part of speech? You've heard of nouns, you've heard of verbs, adjectives. This is what we are calling part of speech. And it's a core area in natural language processing, especially in machine translation and other processes that are performed on natural languages. Lastly, we have stemming, which looks at processing or reducing a word into its stem, which is not necessarily its morphological root. Now, there's a stem of a word and there's a root of a word. When you look at a dictionary, what you see in that entry, what you call the citation form, that is the root of the word. Now, stemming does not necessarily have to reduce a word into its meaningful context. That means stemming is more of a pre-processing step just before you perform lemmatization. So what are these works that have been done in morphological segmentation? And we'll be categorizing them into 2, and for some into 3. We have majorly machine learning and rule-based. Additionally, we have another way of performing morphological segmentation, which is statistical methods. So with machine learning, we look at the first work, which treats chunks as the basic unit of labeling in a sequence labeling problem. That is by Zai in 2017. And the dataset they used was the CON-LL, the 2000 shared dataset. This model performed an F1 score of 94.72%. Now, what is F1? When it comes to machine learning and measuring the performance of a system, especially in natural language processing, there are 2 key things we look at: precision and recall. So F1 looks at what is the most relevant performance for the system, or how has the system performed in terms of the relevant output. So a relevant output could be, given that you've supplied a few words to your system and you've asked it to perform lemmatization, the process of lemmatization will conclude. Of the conclusion of how many of those words are actually lemmas of the input. Next, we'll be looking at unsupervised morphological dataset that was created that contained 2,000 tokens for 9 low-resource languages in 2020. On Swahili, this model outperformed 3 other counterparts, and it achieved the F1 score of 0.4306, which we can say is actually 43%. So next, we have segmenting both Chinese and Japanese using both word and character level information. With Chinese, is a bit different from languages like English, because you notice that Chinese does not necessarily have to include spaces between words. So words in Chinese are not separated by spaces, which is why Chinese is falling in machine learning when it comes to morphological segmentation. So LSTMs, what you call the long short-term memories, and CRFs, what you call the conditional random fields. CRFs is more of mathematical or statistical, and they can be combined with machine learning techniques like LSTMs, and they can be used to detect morpheme boundaries. And this sample here is from a language you call Tigrinya language. When we say morpheme boundaries, basically we're also looking at what constitutes the end of a morpheme. In some languages, it could be a space. In some languages, it could be the beginning of another morpheme. Rule-based techniques. We have the Abumatran project, which focused on English to Finnish language translation using rule-based morphological segmentation. Now, when you say rule-based here, what that means is someone is sitting somewhere and writing down a set of rules, which their software will be using against the input. The next work was an incorporation of English to Swahili, Russian, and Hebrew phrase-based machine translation model using regular grammar to model morphemes. Regular grammar basically is regular expressions in programming, and they're called regular because of the way they are formulated. And you can see in this work, mostly rule-based morphological segmentation focuses on machine translation. The third one is components, part of morphological segmentation in FSM2, which is a system developed by Meru, which achieved a precision of 80% on 4,472 words. Now, to break that down, a finite state transducer is a system that looks at input and compares that input against a set of rules. Once it's given you the result as to whether the input conforms to those rules, it can additionally help you to generate new input. That is what we call a finite state transducer. Morphological segmentation of Runyakitara verbs in the Runyagram,
5 minutes.
in the Runyagram program. And the data set was 3,971 verbs with a precision of 82%. Then we have a finite state morphological analyzer of Ekegusi verbs using Xerox finite state tools. Ekegusi is a language in Kenya, and the author there used a Xerox finite tool, which is a software we use for morphological analysis. Then we look at lemmatization. We sampled out context-based lemmatization on 2 others, and you can see those 2 models achieved 94% accuracy and 95% accuracy. Why are we saying context-based? Because for machine learning, when it comes to lemmatization, you have to look at the context of the word. Then rule-based, we have that language called Sinhala lemmatization. The system achieved an accuracy of 73% on POS tagging with 300 words applied to it, and a lemmatizer for Gujarati text-based on a stemma by Patel. Now their dataset had 2,000 words, and it achieved an accuracy of 98.3%. So let's look at now the statistical approach, which basically uses hidden Markov models, and it performs considerably better. You can see we have 91% accuracy when it's combined. There are 2, what we call bigrams. It's a combination of 2 systems, and it performs one system called the unigram, which basically uses 1 HMM. Then we look at rule-based techniques for POS, a continuation. There is hardware accelerators that was in 2018. We have automata processor and field programmable gate arrays for performing POS tagging on regular expressions. Then we have the 2 works that were done on Indonesian and Welsh. These 2 works used dictionaries, and you can see their performance there is 87.4% for the Indonesian. Now, why are we using dictionaries? Because rule-based, you have to have somewhere you're referencing, and that is mostly a dictionary. Thank you. That is my review of literature in morphological analysis.
Thank you very much. Let us appreciate George for the good work which is done. Again, a very interesting paper on the performance of the machines. And let us keep our questions or comments until we get to the discussion session. Now call upon Kagendo, Dr. Dorothy Kagendo, who is coming to present in place of the listed paper by Masinde, which has requested to be moved forward. So Kagendo, please, you can. So Kagendo is going to make a presentation on epidemiology and characterization of Echinococcus in Samburu and Masai Mara Game Park and surrounding environments in Kenya. Kagendo. Thank you, Kagendo. You can start.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Dr. Dorothy Kagendo. I'm not in the program to present today. The person who should be presenting now is Mr. Titus Mutwiri. He sent to me his PowerPoint I've not been able to download, so we've talked he's going to present tomorrow where I would have presented. I will present on the epidemiology and characterization of Echinococcus in Samburu or Echinococcosis in Samburu and Masai Mara game parks and surrounding environments in Kenya. As a background, this has been my PhD work. This is what I'm presenting today, and it involved cystic echinococcosis, a zoonotic disease that is caused by the larval stages of the dog tapeworm, Echinococcus granulosus. The main objective of my study was to check for the interlink between the wildlife cycle and the domestic cycles of the dog tapeworm, and to understand the transmission dynamics that are involved in the transmission of echinococcosis. Now, why do this? It is because we know many diseases have evolved over time. The wild type, which we might say that is the original organism, has changed evolutionarily. Just like we've been talking about COVID-19, and we know what was found in China is different from what is being reported today. All other organisms are trying they're trying to live in different environments, and as they do this, they are mutating, they're changing their genetic makeup, and this makes the drugs that have been used before not keep being used. They have gained resistance, and it has been a big problem for many infectious diseases. This is the life cycle of the dog tapeworm. What happens is that during slaughter practices, in abattoirs, in slaughterhouses, in home slaughters like we know, like in Masai Mara and Samburu, what they do mostly, they do home slaughter. The small stock are slaughtered by women, like the sheep is not the work of man to slaughter, it is the mother to slaughter. And when they do this, the dog is waiting, and the dog is given this condemned offal. These are infected by the dog tapeworm. So when they consume this, what happens inside the dog is that it is going to hatch in the intestines. Once it has hatched, then it is, when they have hatched and they have grown into adult worms, these adult worms will lay eggs and are passed in the environment through the feces. Now, as humans, we touch different surfaces, different places, and ingest these eggs. For the animals, what happens is that they will graze, and in the grazing areas are fecal matter that as junior eggs are contaminating the environment. So they will also ingest these eggs. And after the ingestion, what often happens is that it goes to the intestines, right? But blood goes through the portal vein, the blood system to different organs, the liver, the lungs, the kidneys sometimes, the mesenteries, the omentum, and sometimes even in the heart. Because as I did my study at one place in Masai Mara, we found a young boy, 11 years old, with an hydatid cyst in the heart. And now the problem is, yes, the prevalence may seemingly be low. Worldwide, highest prevalence has been reported in Turkana of Kenya. That ranges from 3% to 5%. One would say other diseases have higher prevalence rates, ranging from 20 to 50, and these are the focus, the HIV, malaria, and others. But why focus on this? Because the major sure cure for echinococcosis is surgical removal of the cyst, which has to be done very accurately and very specifically, because one leakage of the inner material in the cyst, which we call protoscolesis, one leak of a single protoscolesis, there are millions and millions of them in one cyst. One leak like this, it means another cyst in a different organ. In animals, it has been reported to have over 25% prevalence. So we know it is there, it is a problem, not just in Turkana, but even in other places. Now the big question is, how is this transmitted? The two cycles that have been reported before, the wildlife that involves wild carnivores, such as the lion, the hyena, and wild herbivores, and the domestic cycle that involves the domestic dog and the livestock that we are including the camel, the cattle, etc. How do we get these two that have been reported as in existence, especially in Kenya? Do they interlink in any way? And the interaction, is it causing greater violence in the strains that are there? And what are going to be the effects of this, especially in animals? Those are the study sites. These are the methods that are employed in this study. The samples collected from different environments taken to the laboratories and analyzed using zinc flotation method. The protoscolesis being picked under the microscope, under the light microscope. These were used as templates for the DNA, for deoxyribonucleic acid, for PCR, and which was subsequently analyzed using nicotinamide adenine dehydrogenase subunit 1 and cytochrome oxidase 1. These are the gene sequences that are coding for regions of the dog tapeworm. And this is just a picture of myself taking the ultrasound. These are our, this is according to WHO IGWE classification of ultrasound images. This is how they look. Immediately after infection, we have the small cystic lesion. When it stays a while, it becomes the CE1, that's a small ball. After some time, this becomes like an honeycomb inside. It forms a daughter cyst. Once you have slaughtered the animals and you remove this, you cut inside this water-filled cyst. This is what you might find. And the CE4 and CE5, it means the immune system has worked on the cyst, and these often are calcified. They are like a small stone because the immune system is trying to do its work. The parasite is trying to change. Eventually, the cyst gets destroyed if the immune system wins here. And this is just the explanation of what I did. These are the sampling areas. In the morning, we were shown wild beasts crossing from Serengeti to Masai Mara. As they cross, oftenly they are drowned. When they are drowned, they become easier prey for our carnivores. most often they are infected by this, and when the carnivores eat, they defecate in the fields. This is the wildlife cycle. And the domestic cycle, when we do slaughter, this where you can see the scalpel blade is an hydrated cyst. This is drawn to the waiting dog there, and the cycle is maintained in that way. And during the techniques that are used, I'm looking at Dr. Chege. The techniques that he used involved the PCR and genotyping. Yes, and the sequences obtained aligned in using the NCBI. BLAST is basic local alignment search tool, where you align the sequences to see what other scientists have done elsewhere and comparing with what you have done to be able to tell, is this from Kenya? Has this been found elsewhere and where? And a result, I'll go very fast. Prevalence of CE in human in both environments seemed relatively low. That is 1.1%. 1.1 in Masai Mara and 1.2 in Samburu. That's 1.1. Now, consequently, this, it was noted that the two life cycle patterns exist, and consequently, the interface increases the risk of wildlife species and the domestic, the interaction, and hence humans because of the encroachment of channelling. In a recent study, Echinococcus viridis. Echinococcus viridis is a strain or a genotype that has been assigned to the lions, but it has now been found in dogs. It means there is the overlap between the two. And as an overall, we found out 4 genotypes. Echinococcus granulosus. Echinococcus granulosus is what has been reported in Kenya as more effective to humans. Echinococcus viridis is more based in the wildlife. Echinococcus canadensis is a camel strain that has been reported in camels, and Echinococcus oterepi is a strain that has been reported in cattle. Here in Kenya, we have the sheep strain, Echinococcus granulosus. But if you go to Zambia, people are more infected by Echinococcus oterepi. It's more found in people. Now, it is present in nomadic communities, and it is there in both domestic and wildlife cycles. There is an active interaction, that's what we found out in this study, between the two cycles. And the results demonstrate mixed genotypes like we've seen, which overlap between the two cycles. Now, the Echinococcus viridis, the lion strain, and Echinococcus granulosus, the sheep strain, are more common species, and other genotypes have included those others that I've mentioned. In conclusion, the multiple sequence alignment that we did confirmed the existence of several base pair differences. This is mutation. Base pair differences among analyzed gene sequences gave clear indication of rapid evolution of the parasite over time, and the existence of other Tinea multiceps, Tinea sagonata, among them poses even greater risk to us. Tinea multiceps is an organism that is found. I don't know if you've seen a sheep that is wild, that is almost mad. It is infected by Tinea multiceps, and it is a part of the zoonotic diseases. So being found again in these areas poses greater risk and complicates public health prevention and control strategies that are already laid there. And recommendations, the study are suggesting for frequent ultrasound and frequent studies within these areas, and frequent education on people on dog handling and on condemnation of condemned offals, and other studies to try and understand intermediate way or host hosts for the different strains that we've talked about. And finally, more studies on genomic differences between Echinococcus granulosus, the sheep strain, and Echinococcus ferides. Why? Because their gene sequence looks very close. Now, what makes them different? We need to understand. This study has deposited 168 sequences in the gene bank, and any scientist across the globe who would wish to use this or see them will just go to NCBI blast, do a nucleotide blast, paste the accession number that are here, click on blast, wait 1 minute, and see the click on the MSA viewer, and they'll be able to see the query sequence and use them or understand where it came from. And these are the details you will see when you do this. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kagendo, for the good presentation. Please let us appreciate the presentation by Kagendo again. Thank you very much. And now we'll move to our next presentation by Dr. Gervasio Meriti, who is going to give us an analysis of Kitigania borrowed words from Ma language. Please, Mr. Dr. Meriti, come forward.
Yeah, the one. Okay. Just a minute.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Yes, my name is Dr. Mireti Gervasio. I'm a lecturer at Turkana University College, and I want to present the phonological analysis of Kitigania borrowed ones from Ma language using an optimality approach. This is, I've done this in collaboration with Professor Duranera, who is here with me. And we have done some good job concerning this. And I would like to point out a few things so that at least we be on the same page. There are so many technical terms that I would like at least to make you familiar with. One thing that you must know is that in every language of the world, we keep on borrowing words from one language to another. And the language that has received the ones is called recipient language, whereas the one that has donated is called the donor language. So in our case here, we are looking at Kitigania as the recipient, and then Ma language, which comprises of Maasai and Samburu. Ma include Maasai and Samburu. And you realize that these people are occupying this place in Tigania in around 1750. And when they left here, they left our culture, they left some of the ones that we modified to fit our youth here. One thing that I have pointed here is that languages that have come into contact will automatically borrow from one another. Even from wherever you come from, you realize that there are some ones that you have borrowed from either Kiswahili or English. And I have seen that languages borrow because of necessity. They can borrow because of prestige, technological change, or contact. And there are so many ones that have been borrowed, and those are some of the ones that I would like us to look at. But before borrowing takes place, there are rules that must be followed, and those rules must be adhered to, so that when it comes to the source language, you realize that the source language must be in tandem with whatever has been borrowed. There are some modifications that have to be made so that the word will fit very well. The syllable structure, the phonotactic rules must be applied. And I have said that if you come from around, you realize that we have borrowed quite a lot of words in terms of the naming of places, people, and rivers. And there are quite a number of them. And one thing that makes this study an interesting one is that you are supposed to know that this language of ours is a Bantu language, and we are borrowing from an Nilotic speaking group. And that one now makes sure that, of course, there are some of the changes that must take place. And there we are saying that for a loan one to be accommodated in a given language, those they must conform to segmental and phonotactic constraints that are inherent in that language that is receiving that particular word. And those are some of the things that I have pointed out. And for you to account for the borrowing, you must know the phonetic inventory or the sounds that are inherent in any given language. So as far as Ketigania language is concerned, those are the sounds that we have in that particular language. And you will realize that we have around 24 consonants and 7 vowels. Then from where we are borrowing, we have 25 consonants, and then we have quite a number of vowels as well, as you can see in our slides. Okay, how did I collect this data? Of course, I used descriptive research design, and then I purposively I went out, and then, of course, through interviews, and to ask people who have the knowledge from Tigania community and also from Mas-speaking community. So I had to go and, of course, get the meaning of those words and then know how are these words written in my language, how do we write them here, so that I see the changes that are taking place phonologically. And if you look at our results here, you realize that for words like the ones that I have written, a name of a person like Lithumai, it was borrowed as Lisumai. Reason being that we Tiganians don't have a sa sound. And what happens is that we make it the. So that is why we have Lezumai becomes Lezumai. The word Nguzero becomes Gusero, because now the word Guzero becomes Guzero, because now for our case we don't have sa sound. Then you can look at the others, they follow the same trend. If it's Sirua, of course it becomes Zirua. If it's Wasumara, the name of a river, of course initially it was Wasumara. That is one point that we noted in our data. And I have explained exactly that, that we don't have that sound there, and that is the reason why we use the instead. Then you will realize that when it comes to ba sound, in our community we don't have pa, that is by labial stop. So what happens is that in case we have a word with pa, we interchange it with ba sound. For instance, if it comes to a one like Lubeta. Lubeta, of course, is a name of an age set. But when we borrowed it, it was Lupeta. Because now pa sound is not inexistent in our language, you realize that we change that one to ba, which is common in our language. We have other ones like Oi Babalai. In their place, it was Oi Papalai. One like or loiboni in our place is laiboni because of the syllabic structure that we have that is different from theirs. So I have explained that. It's a technical thing, but I have already pointed out how borrowing takes place, why we interchange this from the other. Then another incident that we noted is that we normally change a word. For instance, a word like Itumu was borrowed as Saidumu. So there is interchange of ta and da. Because in our Tigania language, da is not normally, it doesn't exist in that case. So what happens is that we change it with da. Because of course the place of articulation and the manner of articulation are the same. Then there are some of the phonological processes that do take place as we borrow these ones. Some of these phonological processes include deletion, where we delete some sounds that are not accommodated in our language. And I have pointed out that if you have a word laingo, of course laingo, there before was laingoni. So what happens is that we delete some, even kirotet. Of course, the word in kirote, this is the name of a person, the name of a woman. Initially, when you married so many wives, the one that was favored is the one that was called in kirote. So what happens is that now, because the favored one is called in kirote, and what happens is that in our language, we don't allow the conda or a word ending with a consonant. Because it's a Bantu language, it must end in a vowel. That is why now we have to delete ta, so that it becomes kirote. And then there is lariac, we have it as laria. There are others, like oh, yeah, mine is, I'm summarizing. Like, if you look at Gokon, of course, in Goku, Goku is a chicken, and we borrowed this as Gokon. We have deleted na sound, because, of course, it can't be accommodated in our language. If it's Omurunya, which is Kirunya, we have deleted some sounds at the beginning. Omurunya or Kirunya is that blend that is what was used initially to circumcise or whatever you have seen there. Of course, that is exactly what happens. And then you can see others like kabute and then korotit. We are deleting some sounds so that they can be accommodated in our language. If it's on tuala, in our place it becomes tuala, because ours cannot begin with hall, L, I like that, because this one is nilotic. Then you have seen several examples from there. There is another process called substitution, where we substitute a certain sound with another. Like sirua, which is virua. You see that we are substituting, as I had explained, the sa with ta, and several other examples that you have seen. So those are several other examples. If it's a cow in our place is called ngichu, but we borrowed it as ngishu. And a person who owns many cows is called the ngichu. Yeah? So you realize that that kind of borrowing is consistent with the rules that are there in our language. So those are several other examples of substitution as we have discussed. And finally, we are seeing this paper, of course, sought to investigate phonological adaptations of the Ma loanwords in Kitigania. And the finding reveals that Kitigania places consonantal sounds that are unattested in its inventory with those that are close in terms of articulation, the way we articulate them. And we have given examples of sa sound, tha, and the like. And of course, voiceless bilabial plosives are adopted as bar, or voiced by labio fricative. That is the end of my presentation. I thank you for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Meriti, for a very interesting presentation on how we are related to each other. You hear that the Tigania now is related to Masai, Masai they are related to Nugu. This is very interesting. I believe there could be various questions. We can hold them until we get to our discussion session. To follow Dr. Meriti's presentation, I call upon Kibenji Joseph to come forward so that he can share with us his research with us. Please, Kibenji. Again, we will have 15 minutes so that we can get to the discussion session.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Joseph Kibenji, and I'm here to present something on integrated quality of service management technique for internet protocol storage area networks. My co-authors are Dr. Stephen Motua from Meru University of Science and Technology, and Dr. David Mwavi Getonga from Chuka University, Department of Computer Science. IP networks have been in existence since the 1970s. They are developed by these two guys known as Vint and Bob in the early 1970s. And you come to realize the IP protocol doesn't have any QS mechanisms. Quality of service is just the management of data transmission capabilities of a network in order to offer prioritization. You come to realize there is that traffic in a network that has got more priority than the other, and therefore needs to be treated differently. Now, quality of voice service works by segregating traffic based on maybe priority or application or user levels. Something that I'm going to call later in this presentation performance isolation. And also it works by managing the network resources. Later, the resource under contention in most of the networks, you come to realize it is bandwidth, what we are going to call bandwidth management, then limiting the amount of traffic that can be injected into a network, what we are going to call later burst handling. So to be able to provide complete quality of service, you need to implement all those techniques, or in other words, integrate them in order to harness their various advantages and also be able to provide complete quality of service. Here we are talking about quality of service in IPNet, Internet Protocol Storage Area Networks. A storage area network is just a network of storage devices. And there are various technologies that we can use to create a storage area network. The most dominant one is a fiber channel, of which now is fast but very expensive, and also extending this storage area network over the the local area network, it becomes a bit expensive, and also it incurs a lot of latency since it requires to be a lot of acknowledgement for various transactions. So that led to the development of a technology we are calling Internet Small Computer System Interface, ISCSI, that enables us to be able to transmit storage reads and writes over the IP network, the normal IP network that we have. This technology is a bit cheaper, and also it is easy to manage. So many people know how to work with IP technology. And IP technology is where we send information in form of packets, and also the devices, they recognize each other in form of IP addresses. So to be able to measure quality of service, we use various metrics that we are going to discuss. Those ones that are relevant to storage, throughput, and latency. And these ones, when we form when we have these quality of service metrics given a certain value, they form what we call the service level objective, which are the maximums or minimums that a particular user, class of user is supposed to experience. So the problem with IP storage area networks is that this network that initially was separate, that is storage area network was separate with the local area network. Now the IP, Internet Protocol Storage Area Network, these two networks merge. And you come to realize that it is bound to create a lot of contention for the resources that are there, in this particular case, bandwidth and others. And you come to realize the schemes that have been developed earlier, they just implemented the storage QoS. They implemented quality of service in the storage device. They assumed the network where this data is traversing does not have any quality of service issue. And we know if this is left unchecked, we are going to have a lot of interference between various classes of user, what we are calling poor performance isolation, inefficient utilization of resources, in this particular case bandwidth, that is poor bandwidth management, and a lot of injection of traffic into a network that you cannot be able to handle, what we calling poor burst handling. And also, one thing is that with the previous schemes, they implemented their solution in all the devices, in the individual devices, which creates a situation where there are so many algorithms running at the same time, which creates a lot of overhead. Now, to solve that problem, we have developed the research objective to develop an integrated quality of service management technique for IP SANs that integrates the techniques of performance isolation, bandwidth management, and burst handling in order to offer better quality of service in terms of latency and throughput, and also some jitter, and also to validate the integrated technique for providing quality of service management in IP SANs. The solution was designed as you can see there. We have the priority estimator there. Before we go to do some performance isolation, we need to know which rules hit more. And those rules and classes that are groups of class of user that is associated with that particular class is assumed it has got more priority, and therefore these rules are sorted based on priority. Then we have the rule splitting, then build a tree rule so that we reduce the complexity from ON to O log N to something close to low log N. Then under burst handling, we implement burst handling using traffic shaping, where if packets conform, you can see they just forwarded to the scheduler, but if you don't conform, that is they are trying to use more than the allocated share, they are a bit queued to await more resources to be available. Then in bandwidth management, we have the scheduler, where we implemented an optimized scheduler that was supposed to take care of some of the limitations of the regular DRR. We designed HPDRR, which uses hierarchy of queues and also priority and a dynamic quantum. You can see that the quantum will be calculated based on the priority of those particular users, and Qmax is the maximum transmission unit in a network. This one depends on the technology that you are using. In Ethernet, they'll talk about 1500 megabits, and other technologies, they have their own maximum transmission unit. Then information is sent to the Internet Protocol Storage Area Network, and again, we get the input from the Internet Protocol Storage Area Network, and the cycle continues. The methodology that was used is the experimental research design. So the experimental research design offers more control over the research environment. You can be able to manipulate various variables so that we can be able to make a point. A data source is simulation because you can be able to get a lot of data within a short period of time. This is the SLO. This is what an SLO looks like. I've talked about an SLO earlier, and we generated this SLO so that it can be able to act as a benchmark. These are the standards provided by the Storage Performance Council. They are the ones that regulate the performance of various storage devices. They only give you the IOPS, then you can be able to generate the rest. The throughput in block size. Block size is the chunk of data that you are reading or writing at a particular time. It is measured in kilobits up to megabits, and you can see throughput is just the product of IOPS and the block size. The response time also.
5 minutes.
Yes, response time also you calculate it based on the IOPS you are given, and after implementing that, we had these results: throughput, negative deviation from the SLO. Based on the SLO, we wanted to look at the existing solution versus the proposed solution, the deviation from the service level objective according to the standards given by the Storage Performance Council. And you came to realize for all the block sizes, you can see the proposed solution is performing better. The deviation from SLO for all block sizes when it comes to the proposed solution is less as compared to the existing. Also the same case for latency. You can see apart from 4 KB, you know, we are reading very small chunks, therefore there is not much congestion. So the two systems almost perform similar, but as the IO size or the block size increases, there's more congestion, and you can see the existing solution attain a positive deviation from the SLO compared to the proposed, which were able to attain a negative deviation. A negative deviation means that all the users were able to achieve their deadlines. That is, they were able to read or write in the estimated time. It did not go past the estimated time, so as compared to the existing solution. So for jitter is just the variation in latency. You can see it is more for the existing solution as compared to the proposed solution. The proposed solution drives the system, as we have seen, to operate close to the desired latency and throughput, as evident in the small deviations from the SLO. Also, the proposed solution is able to take advantage of its knowledge of the net workload behavior of the network to be able to meet various deadlines based on the SLO. So as we are calculating the priority, we do it based on how much a particular class of user is using. So that gives the system knowledge of the workload behavior. So in future, maybe other researchers or the same case, we can try extending the proposed technique to non-storage systems and also provide QoS based on application as we have used user QoS. And that is the end of my presentation.
Clap for Dr. Kilenji for the good presentation. And already we've had the 5 presentation, and before we can move to the next session, let me take this opportunity to welcome Professor Anthony Rudiger from Jaramogi Oginga University, an expert in computer science. Welcome, please. Thank you. He has a companion, he has a friend.
Colleague of mine.
Okay, a colleague. Welcome also, please. Now, as I was saying, we've already listened to the 5 papers, starting from the paper by Joshua Remy about the climate smart feet for the camel. We've had a review of techniques for morphological analysis in natural language processing by George Motwiri. And I believe we went to have the paper by Kagendo about the epidemiology and the characterization of echinococcus. Then we had the language borrowing for Tigania people from Ma. And finally, the interesting paper for integrated quality of service management technique for internet protocol storage area. I believe several of us have got some questions, comments, suggestions towards various papers. And in the next 30 minutes, I think we can have these questions, comments, and suggestions so that if there is anything that was not very clear to you, it can be explained and made clear by the presenters. So the floor is open. I now call anybody who may be having a comment, a suggestion. Yes, Meriti?
Thank you, Professor Mutiri, for...
Yeah, make reference to the presentation where your question is, please.
Yes, my question is to Professor...
And introduce yourself.
My name is Miriti. I'm from the School of Health Sciences, actually the Dean School of Health Sciences. My question is to Professor Hari. I would like to have more light on the camel feed. Is it the same as the feed which we give to the cows, or is it a different formula? If it is, are you intending to maybe patent this and maybe make it one of the Meru University products to be sold? Thank you.
Yes, we can take another question. Professor Aremi can note that. Yes, Dr. Ashoka.
Hello. Okay. Yes, I have a small one also, a good presentation too, actually. The first one, from that very interesting presentation by Professor Aremi. So, I was thinking, because of the long neck of the camels, why don't you think of, instead of having the traps on the ground, some simple pulley system on the acacia, that will just hoist, like a flag, just hoist the trap, the feet, for those camels that don't want to learn how to actually forage, how to go to the ground. I don't think it would have much impact in terms of science, but just a bit of convenience to the camels, because we want to sustain them, especially during times of drought. It's just a comment maybe that you can think about. Then to Dr. Miriti, looks like I just wanted to get a historical perspective maybe between the Ma and the Tigania, because looks like from the few examples you gave, like quite a number of borrowed words. And I'm thinking that's just from the Ma community. If we borrow from others, it looks like Tigania simply had no terms at all. Or maybe you can tell us so that we understand the context. About what percentage would you rate the number of borrowed words, maybe from the Ma community? And what words were really existing before that? I'm just curious. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Before we move, let me give the presenters a chance. We will be taking 3 questions, and then give the presenters a chance to respond to them. So, Professor Remy, and then Dr. Miriti.
Let me just allow me to ask the question, please. My name is Abkul. I want to really commend the presenter, particularly that one of camel, because I'm a camel keeper myself. So I want to request the researcher to focus on, in the next stage of research, the issue of feed. The issue of feed is a very big problem in the pastoral area, particularly during the drought area. So keep on with the good work. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Areni. Yes, I'll address 3 questions. One was more light on camera feeds, if we are going to commercialize it. Actually, we have 2 types of feed. One is for male camels, like the one I presented on terms of sustaining male camels. And also Dr. Giacconi is working on another feed for dairy camels. Sure, yes, it's one of the products we are aiming at commercializing, particularly for Meru University, and the university is supporting this endeavor towards that direction of commercializing the feed. The second question was about the long neck. You are right, Dr. Gashoka, yes. I think the part we did for dairy camels, we underraised the traps. We put them slightly, maybe around 1 or 2 meters from the, around 1 and 1.5 meters from the ground. So that's the most recommended, perhaps, height. The photo I showed that the traps were on the floor. You are right, they need to be a bit raised. In terms of the third question, in terms of feed, yes. I think this time, even the pastoralists are finding it quite difficult. Actually, there are records that currently the camel farmers are feeding camels with cartons, boxes. They just soak cartons in water and feed camels. So I think with this formulated feed, it will go a long way in terms of supplementing them during drought. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move to Dr. Mereti to respond to a question that was asked by Dr. Ashoka.
Thank you for the question. And the first one you asked me, whether this study is really history and all that. For one, this study falls under an area called historical and comparative linguistics. So there you are right. But now, ours was to look at the phonological analysis of those words that we have borrowed. So it can't be, it's just something that combines phonology and at the same time history, because you have to know when these people were in contact. That is history. It's just like when you look at English, you realize that some of the ones, a good percentage of ones were borrowed from France or French language when they were, when England were conquered by French people. So it happens that when people come into contact, so there is that element of history. And that one doesn't mean that we didn't have, that is the second question, we didn't have ones of our own. We have. Even now as we speak, we keep on borrowing. Just like even English, we have Kiswahili ones that have been incorporated in English, like shamba, like jembe, and the like. So it doesn't mean that when you borrow, you don't have your own. We borrow because of necessity, sometimes because of prestige. You feel like this one is better than this and all that. And then there is need when there is technology, like maybe in this community there was nothing like petrol because we didn't have vehicles before. So when we borrowed, it becomes the road instead of petrol. Because now there is nothing like bar in our community. That is exactly what happened. If you go to Western, they will talk about a petrol. So you see, now that is the kind of thing that we have. And when it comes to percentages, I have not established the percentage of borrowing. But it must be a very small percentage. Because I pointed out that most of the ones that we have borrowed had to do with the names of places, rivers, and names of people. And you realize that in other ones, in other spheres, you may not have so many ones. I think I've answered the question. Thank you.
Okay. I think there was a second portion of that question related to the proportion of a Ma language in Kitigania. Am I right? Okay. Yes, so we can take another round of questions. Yes, Dr. Moria.
Thank you, Chair. I want to have two questions for Dr. Dorothy. She mentioned the instances of madness in sheep as a result of implanted cysts in the brain. I wanted to know if there are reported cases, if there are reported cases, human reported cases, where madness has been associated with cyst bulbs in the brain. You see so many people manned around and they think they have been going to witchcraft or something like that. Perhaps they are suffering from the cyst. Maybe you can tell us that. Then the second question is, at the moment, do we have established genetic sequencing protocols for cyst diagnosis? Perhaps instead of waiting for the cyst to be scanned for a long time, the moment it is in any organ, we can easily get samples and do sequencing to detect them quite early for treatment. I don't know whether we have already have those established detection efficient methods for fast treatment. Thank you.
Thank you. We can take one or two other questions. Yes, far end. Find the man in charge. Okay.
Norman Cosmos from Rongo University, Department of Informatics. So my question is to Mutwiri. I would like to get clarification about the kind of algorithms that you are going to use in the natural language processing that you are proposing, and how are you going to ensure that you are going to achieve affordance and zero training when it comes to implementation? Thank you.
Thank you for that question, and now we can.
Thank you very much. So I just really want to commend the presenters. Very good and interesting presentations. And I think for me, from being from the business perspective, it's always very interesting to hear, research from science and, very beautiful ideas, great ideas. And, participating in this, I had opportunity to read, the Vice Chancellor's remarks. And I know one of the things that he is looking for is to quickly translate these ideas that we are presenting to development, but also to maybe some money, right? I'm a business person. To money, commercial ideas, right? Yeah, so when I was listening to, the beautiful presentation, one of the questions I asked, normally in, I think, business and social sciences always will have, the last page is implications to practice and implications maybe to contribution of theory. I know here there is contribution to science. I didn't hear this, so I was like, okay, so what next, right? And I know one of them was asked here, are you wanting to commercialize and have some additional camel feed, or what are you wanting to do from this kind of research? So maybe for me, the question I kept asking, so what next? And I know most of us who are from practice, I know we have Kenjen here, he's looking for, so what do we do with this research? What next? What can it inform, right? What kind of further ideas can we get from this in terms of development, but also in terms of monetizing the same? So I just really wanted to know from the presenters, what more?
Thank you, Dr. We can have Kubaison and Anne Kimati. Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. My question goes to Professor Rimi regarding the camel farming, the camel feed. So what came to my mind is maybe Prof can tell us the extent of commercial camel farming in our country, and well, if this field succeeds, the target group, because there's a feeling that the camels are reared by the pastoralists, and these are people who are not likely to afford to buy these fields. So maybe you could shed some light on how maybe we would monetize this the target group to purchase this food, and whether it is the government or the pastoralists themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kubaison. And then finally, Dr. Then you can, I hope the presenters, you're noting down their questions.
Thank you, Chair. My first comment and the question goes to Professor Remy on these camels. Recently, I saw you brought some camels around, and I was wondering, because they are now in a different environment, what are you doing to ensure that, or are you trying to check whether there are changes in their health, or due to change in the diet probably that they are taking around? Do you find this environment very suitable for camels? Because I'm interested, I would like to rear one, and I would like to know what things I'm supposed to give these camels in case I acquire one, and how do I take care of their health so that they don't come and die when they are within this region. I don't know whether these two weather patterns, I mean, they are the same, where they came from and here. I think you could be monitoring. Allow me to ask the second question to Dr. Mereti. Now, this thing is very interesting. I wanted to know, now you have said Kitigani borrowed from the Ma. Have the Ma, or has the Ma language also borrowed from Tigania, or that was not part of what you're investigating? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kubai. We are requesting the presenters to make their way forward as we listen to the last question from Dr. Kubai. Please, you can come forward. George, Professor Remy, Dorothy, Dr. Mereti, please come forward so that for the sake of for the media and also for the audience. Dr. Kubai.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mine goes to this Tiganian borrowing, as borrowing from Tigania. My name is Dr. Kubai James Saitumu. Yes, I'm Saitumu. And again, it's the same age set. I belong to the age set of Lubeta. You mentioned the two as that. Now, I happen not to come from Tigania, I come from Igembe. So what really am I saying? Did we categorize both Tigania and Igembe as the same group of people? Because generally, you have to categorize like that. And many people normally might not differentiate between Tigania and the Igembe. But what I'm asking, did we categorize that? If we did it, then there is need to extend this particular research to the Igembe brothers.
I think we can listen to.
Just one to
Very good work, very original. I think in your presentation you said that the camel population is really growing in Kenya. If I go to well from 50,000, 100,000, now it's about 150,000. And your results are based on just a replication of 10 camels. This now science. So eventually what you are going to conclude, do you think a sample of 10 can inform what will happen with 150,000, 300,000 in future? In other words, how did you get, or is it that you didn't have enough money to get the optimal sample size? Thank you.
Okay, we've had several questions now. Let the presenters make their responses. I hope you are able to note the questions. And I will start with Professor Arini. I think your questions are more than 5. So go ahead, Prof.
Thank you very much. I'm actually impressed that people are interested in this kind of research. When we started, I didn't know it's quite interesting, but it's turns out to be. One question was, what next? We have big plans, but as in business, you say you don't disclose your plans. So we have big plans. And even university is supporting the endeavor towards that direction of commercializing various the fins and the products. So we are in that direction, and in terms of patenting. The other question was extent of commercial farming in the country. Whether the pastoralists will buy the fins, or which is the target group. Is it the farmers or the government? Let me start from the end of the question, whether the pastoralists will buy the fins. These are the same pastoralists who are buying cartons to feed their camels. Actually, there's a misconception that pastoralists don't have money. If you have 100 camels and each camel is worth 100,000, you can compute that in terms of wealth. Only that they're not willing to sell the camels. That's where the problem is. So they wait until it dies. We have seen the real camel farmers, what you are calling pre-urban camel rearing, particularly in Isiolo, they are ready to buy the feeds so that they can, their flock can be sustained during drought. So the target group is mainly the camel farmers themselves. And if the government wants to buy for the farmers, we would also appreciate. But we have seen a lot of interest from the farmers. Even one farmer in the audience said he is willing to buy, so we are convinced. The other question was, we brought the camels to Meru University. What we did is, yes, we brought the camels, but also we took them back to complete the research in Garimara. We had brought them for a specific function on that week. But in July, we will bring the camels here. We have seen camels even in temperate countries. So this is part of research. We will be able to monitor and see if they can survive here or not. But the key thing is we have vet specialists like Dr. Diakono and others who can advise us. But camels are very, very resilient, even in terms of diseases and withstanding conditions. Actually, if you move them from Isiolo to here, it's a better environment for them than the harsh environment. So let me not comment as an expert. I'm not an expert in that area in terms of their health or how the care you need to take. But as we are establishing the Center of Excellence here, we will have that data to tell us which is, because also we are comparing camels from other regions. There are Kajiado, the others, I think, in Taita Taveta and other regions in the country. The question from our VC, whether the sample population, the sample used of 10 can be replicated, I think what I can do is I'll consult you behind the tent. Thank you.
Okay, next is George. There was an issue with algorithms, the language that you used.
I understand that question had 2 parts, so I'll answer the first, and I'll request the one who has to maybe repeat the second. When it comes to natural language processing, there are so many algorithms that I used. One that I've implemented in my research is regular expressions, and that I've implemented using object-oriented programming. So maybe you can repeat the next part.
Okay, we will make a follow-up with him, and then you can talk to him, and maybe that way now we can save some time. Okay?
Thank you.
Next is Dorothy. There are at least 3 questions that were asked. There is the issue of mental health, there is the issue of diagnosis, and the prevalence. Go ahead, please.
I'll start with the first one. Quernulosis is a zoonotic disease just like echinococcus or echinococcosis. Quernulosis is caused by Taenia multiceps. I said usually sheep present with neurological disorders. We are not sure how people would would present. That's why I did a recommendation that yes, this is the finding, that they are among the Taenia that our genotype was Taenia multiceps. And when I went to literature, Taenia multiceps causes quernulosis, and especially has been reported in sheep, where it causes neurological disorders, and the sheep may die after 10 years after the 10 days, after the infection. About it causing madness to people, the degree of madness in people differ, and it's caused by different things. Somebody said that even when you are seated like in a conference like this, the degree is the one that differs. We may not say that it's caused by quernulosis. Research has to give us the percentage that maybe quernulosis may be causing if it is part of the presentation in human. The other one was about the diagnosis. I'll say we have enzyme-linked immunosorbent assays, and we have polymerase chain reactions that as sure will tell you it is Echinococcus granulosus. But the basic one is a microscopy, where fecal samples, especially in canids. But what has been used in surveys is ultrasound. Scientists are underway trying to come up with a diagnostic kits. These will be testing for antibodies present. These will be cheaper compared to enzyme-linked immunosorbent assays. Those were the 2 questions.
There was the question of prevalence. Prevalence is changing, I think, if I got it right.
Well, I didn't get that so clear.
Okay, that is okay, Kagendo. If there is any of our listeners, they can follow up with you later.
Yes, kindly, and then we can have a chat.
Yes.
Thank you.
Next is Dr. Meriti. Your presentation has generated a lot of discussion. People really want to understand the level of borrowing from one language to another, Tigania to Ma to Tigania, and if the language included or made reference to again the dialect.
Yeah, thank you for that. First of all, let me say that the very first question is, of course, going beyond the scope of this study, because the scope was the borrowed ones from Ma language to Tigania. So I could not really look at the ones that Ma people had borrowed from Tigania. But definitely, there must be some ones that they might have borrowed because we were in interaction, or we interacted with them for quite some time. But now, that will be the assignment for the next paper. Well, I will go now to Ma, that is Saburu and Maasai. I try to ask them whatever they had borrowed from us. Then the other question has to do with Igembe, borrowing from Igembe and Tigania. I have to acknowledge the fact that Tigania and Igembe are different dialects, because Kimenti is a dialect on its own, and then Kitigania and the Kigembe. So in order to limit myself, I decided to look at Kitigania dialect. But of course, there is quite a lot of similarity, because if you look at some of the ones like Lare, Laria, then you look at Lubeta and the like, they have a lot of similarity. Because of course dialects, there is a lot of mutual intelligibility when it comes to this dialect and these other, especially when they belong to the same language, because they belong to the same language. So maybe even if I were to look at Igebe dialect, there could have been a much difference from what we have in Tigania, because there are very insignificant difference between the two. So that is why now I decided to limit the scope to Tigania, so that I don't have issues when it comes to spelling of some of the ones, because we spell some of the ones differently from Igembe people. That is what I can say about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our presenters have been fantastic. Let us appreciate all of them for the good answering of our questions. The listeners have been also very good, intrigued by the various presentations. And I think this is the spirit that we want to see continue throughout this conference. Again, in view of the time, we've come to the end of the 5 presentations that we had listed to have during this session. And it is time now for me to take it back to the director so that he can give us further direction. Otherwise, thank you very much for the good listening and for the good questions that you've asked. Thank you. My co-chair is Dr. Chege. Thank you very much, Chege, for good work. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. So we've come to the end of our first session, and I want to take this opportunity to thank you very much, Professor Moshiri, and also Dr. Chege, for that wonderful session. And I want just to announce how we are going to get to the next program. But it is important to again appreciate my mentor, Professor. Most of you don't know him. He was my supervisor for my PhD. And therefore, this is also a special day for me to give back. So thank you very much, Professor, for coming. So looking at the program, we have from the health break, we are moving to the parallel sessions. And these parallel sessions are taking us to now the different thematic areas. And this takes us to the second bit of our program, where now we will get into the specific thematic areas. We want to make a small change, and this is with a group of parallel session 1. This is ICTs, and parallel session 4. This is for the social science group. What we are going to do is these two groups are going to converge back here, and we are going to have the plenary from the two guest speakers at the same venue. And this is Professor Rodriguez is going to give his keynote, and this is in Theater 1. And also we're going to have Dr. Beatrice also giving her keynote from this venue, and therefore we are going to combine the two groups, the ICTs and the social sciences here for the two keynotes, and then we will go to the breakout for the two groups. So the ICTs will remain here, and the social sciences will go to Theater 4. There is a group that is for food safety, security, and agribusiness. And this group will move to Theater 2. And this group is going to have a keynote from the CEO of Kenya National Innovation Agency. This is Dr. Tony Omwansa. And then there is another parallel session in Theater 3, and this is the Business Management and Finance Group. And we also have a keynote speaker. This is Professor Prasanta Dey from the Aston Business School, but he's going to join us virtually, and he's going to give his keynote before the presentations. And therefore, I urge the session chairs for all these parallel sessions to try and mobilize all these groups according to how we have stated. And there is the session chair for ICT is Dr. Mutua, helped by Professor Eustace. The session chair for food safety and security and agribusiness is Dr. Duita, assisted by Dr. Moria. And then the session chair for business, management and finance is Dr. Mohamed Shano, assisted by Dr. Rita. And then the session chair for the social science theme is Dr. Hilda Omai, assisted by Dr. Mercy Thuranera. Another announcement from here, we have our guests. Our guests will proceed to the Innovation Center to get their lunch, and then our guests and our exhibitors, that is Kenjen and our other guests, will move to the Innovation Center. Our ushers, security and the press will go to the cafeteria, and then the presenters, deans, directors, the senators and the conference committee group will go to ECB 16 for the lunch. So thank you very much, and let's converge back at 2. Thank you very much.